Welcome to the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube. This is our Awakening Together weekly gathering. Each and every week we have a different minister who speaks. If you would like to attend our services live, please visit our website, awakening-together.org. Click on Online Sanctuary on the main menu, then How to Enter the Sanctuary. Our services are held Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. Welcome, everyone. Happy Sunday. I'm going to change my view here, so bear with me a moment. It is August 28, 2022, and we are so glad you're with us here at Awakening Together, or we are Awakening Together. And so we have a homily coming up. The beautiful Reverend Christy Goldsmith could not be with us here today, so I was asked to step in for Christy. So here I am. And so here I am. Okay. So good to see everyone. It's like we've got a representative from all parts of the world here. We really are a global community. There's something miraculous about that. So thank you for those beautiful hellos and warm welcomes, and some of you double welcomes. I appreciate that. It's like a love bath. So one of the first things we do here is we like to remind ourselves of our core values and also our purpose here at Awakening Together. And if you don't know about our core values and our purpose, you can always check that out on awakening-together.org. Click on About. It's on the top left of our website. And then you scroll down and you can see the very first one, our spirituality, and our purpose and our values. So it's all there for you. Our purpose. We are an assembly of equals, joined in common purpose, awakening to the one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And the core value that I chose today, I love them all, but I do have to say I love number 3, and that's the one I chose for today. Core value 3 says, we accept one true self, which is one presence or being, non-dual, without beginning or end, absolutely changeless. We live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are. So thank you for joining me in that crucial aspect of this community. It's beautiful to be reminded of why we're here. What's the purpose? What's the value? The inspiration for today's homily, a little bit of it came from that. As you can tell in the movie, he talks and refers to Groundhog Day. So there was that. So thank you, Jacqueline. All right, to be the reader today. But before Judy gets started with our reading today, which will be from Untethered Soul, I want to pray us in. So please, if you feel to close your eyes. Oh, hey there, Regina. Regina's here. Thank you. That was very kind of you to say. Yes, let's pray. Let's settle down and settle in. My prayer to Holy Spirit is this. Dear God, please help me remember and realize that I do not know anything. Dear God, please help me to rely on you via intuition to guide me in all things, and specifically this homily. Holy Spirit, I ask to have faith and to trust the healing process. I choose to put confidence in this benevolent power that is beyond what this mind can know. By your grace, Father God, I accept that all is well, regardless of the appearance. I'm willing to let darkness rise into awareness, as it has for the last 3 or 4 days, ever since I said yes. I also choose, by your grace, to practice rest, accept, and trust as this darkness is rising. I trust that this is healing. I choose to see that doubt is a normal part of this process. And I choose to realize that this is the lower vibration. God, by your grace, I choose faith instead. God, help me overcome this old conditioning pattern loop, aka Groundhog Day. Help me, God. Help us all to shift into these new habits. These new habits that can and will replace this old conditioning, these samskaras. Thank you, God, in advance. Amen. And thank you, Regina, for the inspiration for that prayer. Okay, so now it's time for our lovely Judy. Judy has said yes to being my reader, and I want to say thank you again, Judy, for being so willing. And the nanosecond I asked, you said yes. And so she's going to be reading from Michael A. Singer's book, Untethered Soul. It's chapter 14, and it's the first 4 pages. Okay, I'm going to remove spotlight and hand the mic officially over to you, Judy.
Thank you so much, Saina, for your beautiful prayer, and thank you for asking me to read. It's lovely to be here with everyone. I'm reading chapter 14 from the Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. The title is Letting Go of False Solidity. Inside of one's psyche is a very complex, sophisticated place. It is full of conflicting forces that are constantly changing due to both internal and external stimuli. This results in wide variations of needs, fears, and desires over relatively short periods of time. Because of this, very few people have the clarity to understand what's going on in there. There's just too much happening at once to follow the cause and effect relationships between all of our different thoughts, emotions, and energy levels. As a result, we find ourselves struggling just to hold it all together. But everything keeps changing. Moods, desires, likes, dislikes, enthusiasm, lethargy, It's a full-time task just to maintain the discipline necessary to create even the semblance of control and order in there. When you're lost and struggling with all these psychological and energetic changes, you are suffering. While it may not seem to you that you're suffering compared to what it can be, you are suffering. In truth, the very responsibility of having to hold it all together is itself a form of suffering. You notice this most when things start to fall apart outside. Your psyche goes into turmoil, and you have to struggle to hold your inner world together. But what exactly are you trying to hold on to? The only things in there are your thoughts, emotions, and movements of energy, none of which are solid. They are like clouds simply coming and going through vast inner space. But you keep holding on to them as though consistency can substitute for stability. The Buddhists have a term for this, clinging. In the end, clinging is what the psyche is all about. In order to understand clinging, we must first understand who clings. As you go deeper into yourself, you will naturally come to realize that there is an aspect of your being that is always there and never changes. This is your sense of awareness, your consciousness. It is this awareness that is aware of your thoughts, experiences the ebb and flow of your emotions, and receives your physical senses. This is the root of self. You are not your thoughts. You are aware of your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You feel your emotions. You are not your body. You look at it in the mirror and experience this world through its eyes and ears. You are the conscious being who is aware that you are aware of all these inner and outer things. If you explore consciousness, which is your pure sense of awareness, you will see that it really does not exist at any particular point in space. Rather, it is a field of awareness that focuses down to a point by concentrating on a particular set of objects. You can be aware of feeling just one finger, or you can be aware of feeling your entire body at once. You can be totally lost in a single thought, or you can be simultaneously aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your body, and your surroundings. Consciousness is a dynamic field of awareness. Oh, sorry, I lost my spot. Consciousness is a dynamic field of awareness that has the ability to either narrowly focus or broadly expand. When consciousness concentrates narrowly enough, it loses its broader sense of self. It no longer experiences itself as a field of pure consciousness. It begins to relate itself more to the objects it's focused upon. As we have seen, this is what happens when you get so absorbed in a movie that you completely lose the broader sense of sitting in a cold, dark theater. In this case, you have shifted from concentrating on your body and its surroundings to concentrating on the world of the movie. You literally get lost in the experience. This can be generalized to your entire experience of life. Your sense of self is determined by where you are focusing your consciousness. But what determines where you focus your consciousness? At the most basic level, it is simply determined by anything that catches your awareness because it stands out from the rest. To understand this, Imagine that your consciousness is simply observing vast, empty inner space. Now imagine that passing through this space is the gentle flow of random thought objects: a cat, a horse, a word, a color, or an abstract thought. They are sporadically floating right through your awareness. Now let one object stand out above the rest. It catches your attention and draws the focus of your awareness. You immediately realize that the more focused you become on the object, the slower it moves, until eventually, if you focus on it enough, it stops. The force of consciousness ends up holding the object stable simply by concentrating on it. Just as a fish can pass through water, but not through ice, which is simply concentrated water, so mental and emotional energy patterns become fixed when they encounter concentrated consciousness. The very act of differentiating the amount of awareness focused on one particular object over any other creates clinging. And the result of clinging is that selective thoughts and emotions stay in one place long enough to become the building blocks of the psyche. Clinging is one of the most primal acts because some objects remain in the consciousness while others pass through. Your sense of awareness relates more to them. You use them as fixed points to create a sense of orientation, relationship, and security in the midst of constant inner changes. And this need for orientation exists to the outside world. Although you are clinging to inner objects, you use them to orient and relate yourself to the multitude of physical objects that come in through your senses. You then create thoughts that tie all the objects together, and you cling to the entire structure. You actually end up relating so strongly to this inner structure that you build your entire self around it. Because you cling to it, it stays fixed. And because it stays fixed, you relate to it above all else. This is the birth of the psyche. In the midst of the expanse of empty mind, by clinging to the passing thought objects, you make an island of apparent solidity. Once you have a thought that stays, you can rest your head on it. Then you cling to more and more thoughts. You build an inner structure for consciousness to focus on. The more consciousness narrows its focus onto its mental structure, the greater the tendency to utilize it to define the concept of self. Clinging creates the bricks and mortar with which we build a conceptual self. In the midst of vast inner space, using nothing but the vapor of thoughts, you created a structure of apparent solidity to rest upon. Who are you that is lost and trying to build a concept of yourself in order to be found? This question represents the essence of spirituality. You will never find yourself in what you have built to define yourself. You're the one who's doing the building. You may assemble the most amazing collection of thoughts and emotions. You may build a truly beautiful, unbelievable, interesting, and dynamic structure, but obviously it's not you. You are the one who did this. You are the one who was lost, scared, and confused because you focused your awareness away from your awareness of self. In this panic, in this lost state, You learned to cling and hold on to the thoughts and emotions that were passing before you. You used them to build a personality, a persona, a self-concept that would allow you to define yourself. Awareness rested itself on the objects it was aware of and called it home. Because you have this model of who you are, it is easier to know how to act, how to make decisions, and how to relate to the outside world. If you dare to look, you will see that you live your entire life based on the model you built around yourself. Thank you, Saina.
Again, thank you so much for reading. Wow, that was a gorgeous reading, Judy. Perfect in every way. So, I did things a little out of order. So, yay. And so now we're going to listen to the opening song. But please keep in mind, as we're listening to the opening song, all the beauty that was read and that wisdom from Michael A. Singer's book, Untethered Soul. So kind of keep that fresh as we listen to the opening song. Thank you. So that song was by Jason Gray, No Thief Like Fear. And I like the part where it says, being set free. Oh my God has released me. And I liken the chains as to the analogy of the samskaras and the different ways that, we're stuck in this loop of insanity, the tiny mad idea. And hence the name Groundhog Day, because my prayer is, God, please release me from this Groundhog Day. And what I mean by that, and I'll go in further because that chapter 14 really explains it. And the topic that I want to teach myself today is what I've heard so many times taught in the sanctuary by different sages that have been shared through readings. Of course, Regina Dawn Akers has shared on this topic many, many times. But the part where I seemingly still struggle is believing that my emotions are who I am and getting identified and caught up. And as you heard Judy so beautifully read, that emotions are not who we are. Let me see if I can find the exact. So one of the ways we get totally stuck and build this psyche or this sense of identification is through clinging. We think that we are our thoughts. We think we are our emotions. And that's in movements of energy. And we try to make solidity out of that. Okay, so I guess I'm just supposed to spontaneously flow because I'm not fighting. So let me tell you about my Groundhog Day. My Groundhog Day is waking up every single morning. And it happened again today, by the way. So I wake up. And the very first thing that usually happens is, that there's a feeling of tiredness. I don't really want to get up. The thoughts that come in automatically without me even trying, they're just been practiced for years and years and years is, I'm tired. This sucks. I don't want to be awake. I want to go back to sleep. And then thoughts like, I feel like garbage. I feel like crap. So the thoughts are what I'm building this identity on. And I'm starting my day this way every single day. And for me, that's the Groundhog Day. It's like the loop of insanity. And one day, this was probably like 6 or 7, maybe 8 months ago, I caught that thought as I was making myself breakfast. I caught it. the thought was, I feel like garbage. And I was like, well, now wonder. So I proceeded to go do the work on that thought. The work is through Byron Katie, and I have downloaded the app on my phone to make it really easy breezy for myself. And I questioned it. I questioned that thought. I wrote it down and applied the 4 questions and the turnaround. And right away, just asking who or what would I be without that belief, there was already a tremendous amount of relief. Also, in that questioning process, I got to see, wow, how many other thoughts come in that are associated. There's like, for me, this mind, through the power of association, without trying, one thought will lead to another thought, will lead to another thought, will lead to another thought. And by that time, they're all really negative. And so then I understood the concept misery loves company, because that is true for these thoughts, these miserable thoughts. And so by the end of the inquiry process, I got to a really powerful turnaround. The thoughts are garbage, not me, but still what was happening day after day, even after seeing this, I totally saw through this thought, right? And its cousins, you know? And then every day I would keep waking up feeling the same exact way. Low energy, lethargy, not wanting to get up. This same exact thought would play, even though I'd seen through it. And so I go back to what I've already written in the app, and I would read it, and there would be relief again. That aliveness, that effulgence, that joy of being would come through. But it was like this, another cycle kept repeating itself. And somehow I was like, okay, Holy Spirit, what am I missing? I'm seeing through the thought. I know the thought is a lie. I know the thought's not true. And I feel the relief and the release when I don't believe it. And then, of course, if I'm not believing that thought, all the associated thoughts just fall by the wayside. But it's like every morning I had to reawaken myself to see that that thought is a lie. So then I knew something was happening. And I was like, Holy Spirit, what am I missing? I'm missing something here. There's something I'm not quite clear on. I'm not seeing yet. I'm willing to see. Please help me see. So that was my prayer. And then, so the next thing that happened is I realized, oh, I'm still identifying with these emotions, these feelings, these sensations, believing they're true. See, for me, first thing in the morning, it's not necessarily always the thought that comes first. It's this feeling. And what happens is, what Michael Singer pointed to in chapter 14, is how my attention, my awareness would focus. Through the power of focus, it would focus on those feelings and automatically believe them. Believe they are true. It just was like a habitual pattern I've probably been doing for 40 years or more. Who knows? But a whole lot of decades. So thank you for every morning I have to reawaken myself to the fact that the thought isn't true, isn't me. Thank you. Thank you, Anne. That's a good one to remember for this one. So what happened was the next step, it feels like, in the healing journey is this prayer of my heart now. And the reason why I said yes so quickly to Jacqueline to do this homily, because I told her, I said, yes, there's something I really want to teach myself. I need to learn this lesson that I am not my emotions. I am not my feelings. I am not these sensations. So that's where I'm at right now in the journey. That's part of why I'm here and why I'm sharing, is because I'm ready. I'm ready and willing for this next step. And reading that again and hearing that chapter just solidifies, when you hear the wisdom of the masters and the teachers, that you resonate with the truth because something in you already knows the truth, because the truth is true. And so when I hear things like, I'm not my emotions, I'm like, okay, Holy Spirit, I understand what's written here, but I don't have the experience of it yet. Please show me. So that was my prayer yesterday morning, and just really sitting and contemplating this. But what is it like? To let go of knowing myself as these emotions, these thoughts, where I get hooked, where I get triggered, where I seemingly get stuck believing this. And so yesterday in my contemplation time, it got so much worse. It just all came to the surface. Oh my God. So what happened is I kept asking Holy Spirit about these emotions, this identification. What came up yesterday was this feeling I have felt for so long. Every time the I am bad thought comes in, anytime the lack thought comes in, anytime an unworthiness thought comes in, I noticed. So what I got to see was this is the same feeling. And I was like, Holy Spirit, what is this? It's almost like an all-in-one. For me, it's an all-in-one feeling that totally compromises every negative, guilty, I am bad belief. Like that's that sensation right here that I feel. And I was like, Holy Spirit, what is that? And what I got and heard intuitively was, that is the ego. That is the core sensation, feeling of the separate sense of self. That's it. So, man, I came face to face symbolically, I didn't see a face. It was just an energetic, like, whopper of oh, so that's what that is. And so then I was just being with it. Okay, show me, Holy Spirit. Show me I'm not this. Who or what am I when I let go of believing that I am this? And so what then happened was that life force, that energy, that vibrancy started to seemingly transform or replace it. And it was probably like 30 or 40 minutes into the meditation contemplation and, being with Holy Spirit in this way, that feeling that's been with me for so long. Now, I have to admit, it does come and go. It's not always there in the forefront. Okay. Sometimes it kind of flies underneath the radar. But how it had been so robust and just so obviously there, that aliveness and vibrancy replaced it. And then I was like, where did it go? But what happened when I said, see there? See, it is temporary. It's true what the masters are saying. The ego, false self, the separate sense of self is temporary. So by seeing that it was temporary, I could see again in a deeper way how not true this separate sense of self is. And then the aliveness and the joy and the peace that comes when it's not there is profound, very profound. And so my journey now is just to keep seeing what I've seen, deepen in that realization. And like today, moving forward, even when it's trying to come back again today. And it tried to come back even more. Like, instead of waking up with that usual feeling of yuck and unease and the body tired. And today I woke up with that feeling and a huge headache that felt like someone was taking a sledgehammer to the inside of my brain. And then miraculously, just being with you all and then these kind words in the private chat and just seeing all your bright and shiny faces and the fact of showing up, I could feel it lifting. And then the courage of that prayer and just to move forward in the face of fear. That's why I wanted to play that song, No Thief Like Fear. Because if we let it, fear can steal our joy. Not forever, obviously, because what we truly are is everlasting, but it can seem to. But we don't have to let it. We can move forward even in the face of fear. And what is that? The prayer. Part of the prayer is being willing to let the darkness rise. So if it's just like it did for me yesterday in my contemplation, let it rise. And then something is seen. It is seen through, but what sees all that? So that was the other part of my inquiry, is the power of self-inquiry. It really does give us wings, because when I can step back and there's just enough space to say, well, wait a minute, who or what is seeing this energy or this feeling or this fear or this sense of dread or this sense of being so completely contracted? What sees that? What sees that? And so it's not about getting an intellectual answer. It's about asking a question and sitting back and resting in the response that is a felt sense of the opening. There's something that gets cultivated. There's something that comes forth. There's something that gets magnified in truth. It's awareness of being. It's awareness, aware that it's aware. So there's a whole lot of awareness happening with that question. And when I can fall back into the awareness that I am, I'm seeing here's that feeling of unworthiness or the separate sense of me. And here I am over here looking at it. And that's the power. The power is in that gap. And thank you, Marisol. That's really sweet. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So I wanted to also read another passage, because it's not just Michael A. Singer saying that we are not our feelings. We are not our emotions. There are other teachers and masters that are pointing to this truth. And a book that I picked up today, and I opened right to it, which I thought was hilarious. I was like, okay, somebody's trying to tell me something. It's called Awake Joy, and it's by Katie Davis. We actually had Katie Davis with us way back when for a sat song, and it's on our website. She talks about waking up to wakefulness. And here's Katie's words. Essence is simply not an object. See, that's what I was trying to do. Every time I'm identifying with a feeling, thinking that's what I am, I'm objectifying myself. I've mixed my awareness, my essence of who I truly am, with that object. The object in this case was that feeling. So that's how I was doing it. That's how I was literally blocking the joy. So she goes on to say, and therefore the conceptual mind cannot know essence. Essence is not an experience or state that comes and goes. See, emotions, feelings, sensations, they come and go. What I truly am does not come and go. So there's another way to disidentify. Is it coming and going? Okay, then that's not me. Essence is not an experience or a state that comes and goes within the world of form. It is a permanent and it's free of experience. We can only be essence. We be it. We be it. We be essence, and yet it remains untouched. When we surrender the duality created by the separate self and its body reference point, and see, that's another thing that I was doing. I didn't realize I was doing by identifying with these sensations and also the feelings and the emotions. That was what was cultivating the I am body belief, making me identify as a body. And of course, the body's limited, of course, hello, but I'm not limited. But that's how I was getting trapped in that Groundhog Day, trapped in the loop of insanity, and also trapped in the mind because of that belief, the beliefs that would come like, I feel like garbage. And another mistake that I realized through the power of inquiry I was making is how I particularly would do this thing where, like, for instance, let's use this as an example. The thought would come in, I feel like garbage. So then the next step my mind would take without me trying automatically is, oh, I must be garbage. I am garbage because I feel like garbage. So that's how I made the association. So once I identified that connection, I could see how through that I feel, that's how I was looping into the insanity and the hook of the I am that would come. The I am, or like I feel like I am that, or I feel like I am that feeling. So that is the biggest mistake that one of them. let's be honest, there's probably many more, but that's one of the mistakes that I was making is I missed the point, misidentified as that feeling by believing I am that feeling. So that's where the loop came from. Let me finish reading what she's saying here. So the discovery occurs when expectation or effort has no requirement or standard. Nonetheless, awakening used to be extremely rare. Today, this is not so, and people are opening to this reality. Awakening is emerging everywhere. There's so many expressions of life. We're finally discovering the true essence of the human being, and that essence is the pure being of the human, beyond the limitations of conditioned thought and the identification with form. And here's why I just randomly picked this up, and this is the line. We are not our name, thoughts, emotions, or physical form. When we stop searching and resonate as still being grace naturally emerges, just as the morning sunlight gently parts the clouds. So I thought it was interesting. She too is reiterating the truth that we are not our emotions. So I had already seen through a lot of thoughts through doing the work, and I really have come to know that I'm not my thoughts. But the clincher was for me, this now moving into the terrain of the realization of knowing I'm not my emotions. I'm not these feelings. And so that's where I'm at. And it's 11:20, and it doesn't feel like all that time has passed by. So I am going to go ahead and play our contemplation song. Now, this song I chose because it talks about wings. And let's see if I can pull up the exact name of it's Jackson Dean, Wings. And I have just heard this song just the other day, but I thought it was perfect as a contemplation song so that we can contemplate how we can use self-inquiry as the wings, and also trusting that benevolent power that is beyond what our senses or mind can know. Those are our wings. And it is my prayer that we all have that experience of knowing that we are beyond our mind, we are beyond our thoughts, we are beyond our emotions, and we are the essence. So here we go. So here's the thing. We don't need to wish that we had wings. We have them. We do. We have these tools. We have self-inquiry. We have this beautiful, gorgeous community. We have the legacy of love that Regina has left for us and continues to give to us. So we all are each other's wings. And I appreciate everyone's kind words in the chat. Oh my goodness, so beautiful. To God be the glory. To God. All those compliments straight to God. I would like to invite anyone who wants to speak. We do have 4 minutes. And so I invite you to raise your virtual hand if you want to say anything. Please go ahead. Anne, go for it.
Well, my friend, I know you think you weren't here in Levita with us this past week, but you just taught the retreat that we did for 5 days. And I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you for your bravery, your courage, your demonstration. And it is showing up. It is the showing upness to our own darkness, to each other's darkness, to what welcoming it all and asking, show me. And we just continue to pray that prayer. Show me. I'm here. Show me. And you're such a way shower for me. Thank you, my friend. Beautiful. Mwah.
Oh, thank you. Oh, just got love blasted. Yeah, that is, oof, no words. Virginia has her hand up. Virginia, take the mic.
So I want to thank you. You solved a mystery I've had for a long time. Growing up Catholic, there was the Magnificat that we were learning that was supposedly a response that Mary made when the angel came to her, or, and it starts out, my soul magnifies the Lord. And I had no clue. I've never had any clue what that meant. And you gave it to me today, Saina. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow. So Jen has her hand up.
Hi. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the homily today and the homily you gave on Friday, because this morning in the UK time, I just watched and then listened to the whole of the celebration for Regina's retirement. And it was a really joyful, really beautiful thing to listen to and be a sort of a virtual part of. And you said some stuff when you were rejoicing in Regina there, which really linked for me, because you have a particular capacity for joy and a particular capacity for joy in others and joy in life. And I just kind of wanted to reflect back to you that what I always hear and see in you is light. There is this extraordinary joy and light in you, and naming the darkness makes your light shine brighter and makes you more of a faithful teacher. Just like you were saying about Regina, that's what I'm hearing and seeing. So thank you.
Wow, Jenny. Oh, I just want to give that back to God, because that was so enriching. That was nourishing. My heart is going like that. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone. It is 11:30. I appreciate all of you. Much love. And I'll see you in the sanctuary. I'm still here, and I'm going to officially say goodbye and for the recording. Hope to see you again soon. You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, You can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.